Toucher. Oh, okay. Just wanted to extend a thank you to the town of Hay River, Mayor, you, councillors, and the team that are putting this all together behind the scenes. I was up a couple weeks ago and an invitation had been extended to our director of MTS to come and speak, and Steve Hagerman wasn't available, so I jumped at the chance to come back up a couple weeks later. So just by way of introduction, so my name is Tracy St. Dennis. I'm the Assistant Deputy Minister for Program and Services. That means I'm the ADM lead for fuel services and marine transportation services, as well as driver's licenses, the highway patrol officers, a few other things, but really pleased to be able to come today and talk about MTS. I've been in the Northwest Territories many decades. I was very young when I moved here, but I've been passionate about transportation. Before I joined government, I actually was in the aviation world, so it's a pleasure to meet with you guys today to kind of talk about the MTS experience, our experiences from last year, and what we're doing to plan for next year. Today I wanted to just quickly touch on the history of MTS, kind of where it was, where it is, and where we are now as far as ownership. Talk a little bit about what MTS is as a program. Talk about last year, some of the things that we did. We had Plan A, we then had to move to Plan B, then Plan C, then Plan D. So again, just really appreciate the chance to come and talk about that, and then how we're using that experience to make improvements, and what lessons did we learn, and what are we doing to get ready for this year. And then finally, I just wanted to quickly touch on a governance review. The government is looking at what MTS is. That process is underway, but just wanted to maybe close off with that and then absolutely open it up for questions. Most folks may remember that many years ago, NTCL actually was a federal corporation. It was sold actually to IRC and Nunisi back in '85. They operated it for roughly a little over 30 years. And then unfortunately NTCL filed for bankruptcy protection, but the G.N.W.T knew that the organization provides essential delivery of goods and fuel. So the G.N.W.T stepped in and ensured that the organization would continue. And the G.N.W.T has been operating MTS since that time. Obviously, as I've mentioned, it's vital to get fuel and goods, down the river, across Great Slave, and then, of course, to the ISR into our high Arctic communities. Folks know here that, obviously it is the largest barging entity in the Northwest Territories. We service, wide variety of communities across the Northwest Territories. We have 3 freight terminals, one in Hay River, one in Inuvik, and one in Tuktoyaktuk. And just wanted to provide a bit of a shot. This actually is a photo from last September of the Edward K arriving in Uluwaktuk last fall. So. MTS is made up of 4 areas. We have administration, which is really where we do procurement, and our finance unit. We have the terminals that I've talked about, where we have a variety of contractors helping us move fuel and goods. And then we have the shipyard, which is in Hay River. Unusual to have a shipyard this far north, but what it really does is it allows us to do work on our own vessels, as well as support the Coast Guard, which I'll talk about shortly. We have 6 mainline tugs, affectionately called the Edward K, Kellyo, the Vic Ingram, the Henry C, the Nunakput, and then we do have a vessel called the Nahidik that's used for research. And we have a harbor tug called the Kikiza, and it really is the workhorse of the organization. I'll talk a little bit about it. It's a much smaller vessel, and we're actually in the process of acquiring another vessel, a small vessel, to help us this year when we start dealing with low water. We've got 35 in-class barges that we use to move fuel and deck cargo. So anyway, just wanted to do a quick overview. A bit of a map that shows the kind of the footprint of MTS. I wish I'd brought my pointer with me, but we obviously do fuel resupply and providing cargo for businesses, communities, G.N.W.T projects, food, through, as I mentioned, through ISR, Sax Harbor, Olawaktuk, Pawlatuck, and Tuktoyaktuk, and then, of course, also over into one stop off in Nunavut, and then importantly here today to talk about MTS and the work that we do here in the Sahtu. We also have, we do move fuel and cargo over to Little Cay on the East Arm. East Arm also supports some tourism operators and the federal government that's got a bit of some work that they're doing. And then finally, typically after the community resupply is done, we actually do some work for the federal government resupplying the North Warning System that the feds have with goods and cargo and fuel. So just a bit of a snapshot of some of the work that we do throughout the year, but really it is about the essential community resupply of fuel and goods. I thought it would be interesting to kind of just step back a little bit and explain what spring of 2023 was, kind of where we were almost a year ago. You know, people have talked about climate change today, and you know, it wasn't that long ago that in spring of 2022, Hay River actually was evacuated because of flood. And then we found ourselves last spring in a very different situation. The challenges of where we were last spring because of weather issues, because of delays due to flood, at the end of last year, we actually had some of our mainline tugs and our barges actually not normally overwinter where they overwinter. It's not uncommon for our equipment to overwinter in different places, but we literally started the beginning of last season with, you'll see one of our tugs up in Cambridge Bay, so we had to wait to redeploy that back. Same with Pawlatuck and having some barges over in Bathurst Inlet. So I just wanted to paint the picture that the beginning of last season, automatically day one had some challenges just because of the previous season, because of weather issues and a variety of challenges. And then of course last spring, majority of our team is in Hay River. They were evacuated last May. All that being said, the team, you know, made up time, got crews where they needed to be in order to actually get back and start moving cargo and fuel right away. So anyway, just wanted to kind of start the picture of 2023, that it was a challenge at the beginning of the year. Today, wanted to just share one of the kind of plan Bs, plan Cs, and plan Ds that we had to do. One of the primary things that happened right away because of the low water is we decided to actually have the barges for cargo planning actually loaded lighter, which means we had less of a draft in the river. So we used more barges that were lighter. So we did have more trips last year. We also looked at doing a bit of a north-south operation. We knew we wanted to make sure that we could have dedicated fuel movement into the Sahtu, but we also wanted to make sure that we could get fuel over the top up to the ISR communities. Normally all of the fuel would come through Hay River, travel down the river, along the Mackenzie, and then up into the ISR. So very quickly we moved to Plan C, which is to actually have the fuel come from the west coast of Washington to Cherry Point to bring the fuel over the top. This has been done in the past, but again, we didn't want to wait to see how the water was going to behave. You know, folks here know, you know, better than I, you know, water is normally higher at the beginning of the season. It's the question of how long will that water stay. So just appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk about what the small team did to make sure that we could have as successful as a season as possible. As I mentioned, there was an evacuation in May to Hay River. There were concerns about wanting to make sure that we met the fuel over the top with the cargo that was in Hay River. So we made arrangements actually to truck the cargo from Hay River up to Tuck, so that when the fuel arrived, the fuel arrived from your perspective, from Washington over the top, that the cargo was actually there, so that when the fuel was ready and was transferred to our barges off of the large tanker, that the cargo was ready and that the captain and the barges could leave. And that's in fact what did happen. And pleased to report that we did have a successful delivery to the Inuvialuit settlement region because of Plan B and C. And I think that's our new reality, that you go from one season where it's a flood to the next season where you're dealing with low water. And that's, I think, what we've learned over the last couple of years, that you have to be prepared and you have to have those plans ready. And then unfortunately, and the team really did try, unfortunately with the evacuation of Hay River for the second time later in the summer, we weren't able to complete the tow to the Sahtu. We made arrangements to have that cargo moved on the winter road, returned fuel to Imperial. Pleased to hear that Imperial has successfully brought their fuel in this winter on the winter road. I know the regional team here with Jeff Edison and the team in Fort Simpson, with Dylan working hard with the contractors to make sure that the road was in best condition and extra resources this winter, so we could get that cargo and fuel in over the winter. Anyway, just wanted folks to know that because of that one evacuation, we weren't able to complete that last trip into the Sahtu. But we did work with customers to bring in the necessary items that had to be flown in, and then a lot of items came in. Our cargo shop in Hay River worked to get it transported by truck over the winter road. So that kind of paints the picture of what 2023 was. We did do a lot of communicating with leadership, a lot of emails. Where tows were, keeping leadership in the loop on kind of where things were at. I think that's the main theme too moving forward on 2024, and I think we've heard it here today. You can't under communicate. For 2024. It was key to kind of get out early, start talking about what that experience was like last year, what we've learned from it. And I had the pleasure to attend the N.W.T. Association of Communities, AGM, a couple weeks ago in Fort Simpson. They have a really, I think, a unique opportunity or a unique way to talk to people that I really like, and I think we might actually borrow it in future. But they almost have like speed dating tables where there's different people at different tables, and then people move around and can go talk to. So rather than having one person talk, you get a chance to visit different people. So for the first time, we had a table. I thought it was important that, we had an opportunity to sit down with leadership and talk about, how we tried to deal with Plan B, C, and D last year, but also get feedback, where are things that, where can we do better? I think that's something you'll see MTS do more of. Coming here and being able to talk to leadership here is also important. So, kind of with that, leading into the 2024 season, we are very closely watching water levels. A couple weeks ago, I had a really good update from the hydrology unit in the Environment Department. I was very pleased that Hay River got 10 to 12 inches of snow last week. Glad to see the snow today. It's amazing how your perspective changes. You know, if you would ask me 5-6 years ago about me wondering about cold weather in the winter and snow, it would have been more about, wow, I can't wait for spring. Now I'm, where's the snow, where's the rain, where's the cold weather? So anyway, the team is watching and talking to whoever we can in order to plan and get ready. So some of the key things that we're working on, you know, folks here know Coast Guard is critical, getting buoys out. We need those buoys out in order for our vessels to travel. Coast Guard, well aware, they've got extra buoys out on the river. There was some concern about the timing. You know, do you go and retrieve and then put out? They've got new buoys. They're going to get those buoys out as soon as possible. We are going to be very closely following behind them to get out. And the theme for 2024 is get out early, and that really has been the operational focus. We're currently right now looking at you know, all of the resupply planning and getting schedules built. Again, it really is about trying to get out as soon as the weather and Mother Nature allows us to, with the melting of ice and, you know, kind of that mid-June perspective. The shipyard's been busy, and this is just a picture actually of the Coast Guard's vessel, the Ikaloo, actually in part of the shipyard. Basically getting everything ready to go, and while we're working on the Ikaloo, the Coast Guard's actually going to be doing what they need to do. So it's going to be literally, pun intended, but all hands on deck to get everything ready. And then just wanted to talk about Imperial Oil and Norman Wells, top of the list as far as getting fuel and cargo into these, you know, both into Toledo and to Norman Wells as soon as we can this summer. That is front of mind as far as our planning. I mentioned the over-the-top. We are looking to do that again this season, and then we will be looking to move cargo for ISR, watching quite closely, you know, down the river that like we normally would, but we are actually looking to schedule the movement of the fuel for ISR in Safe Harbor in Wise Bay. So, lots of planning going on over the winter, you know, reflecting on what happened last winter or last season, and, you know, what improvements we can make. You know, look forward to taking questions about kind of our approach. And then just, as I mentioned, just really quickly wanted to mention that this government is doing a bit of a governance review. You know, what should MTS be? MTS right now is a government program. You know, is that working? You know, are there other options? Crown Corp, private sector model, full privatization. I mean, I think, you know, again, you've heard me say it before, this is essential shipment of fuel and goods. You know, that doesn't change. That will always be a reality. So just wanted folks to know that there was an RFP that was done. KPMG is currently going through a review and going to make some recommendations. That'll go to standing committee, and that's probably a summer into fall. But there'll be more to report on that. But again, just wanted folks to know that this small but mighty team is actively planning the essential movement of fuel and goods to the Sahtu. Anyway, I just appreciate the opportunity to come and chat, and you know, it really is about, you know, how can we communicate, and there really is some really interesting things happening in that kind of marine world. I mean, Transport Canada was just up a few weeks ago. You know, they're making sure that we have the certificates that we need. Coast Guard's very active and making sure we're all ready to go. Left hand and right hand are talking, this is what happens when we find ourselves in difficult situations. And as well, had an opportunity to actually go and get an update from the Marine Training Center, which is operating in Hay River. It's a nonprofit, but they're doing some really interesting training of youth around bridge watch programs and marine first aid. So there really is an interesting focus on kind of that next generation. So anyway, more opportunity to talk about that in the future, but wanted to just really come and share the story of last year and our planning for this year, and, you know, get some feedback. And, you know, we know there's always areas to make improvement, but just wanted to share what we've been working on. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. I have one comment, it's nothing to do with water or barges. It's just to thank the government and N.W.T for the amount of work and money they put in through this year's winter road. We're able to keep it maintained well enough that we got all our freight hauled. And we did meet earlier with your minister. We mentioned a lot of the things that they should be doing, and it sounds like they did listen to us. Icing the road, watering the road, and extra maintenance. So that went well. I think most of us are pretty satisfied that we got most of our freight delivered, and we thank the Minister and her team for that, and yourselves. Thank you. Questions from the floor, please.
You see MTS, they're waiting, I don't know what they wait for. Like, you guys wait for the water to go as low as possible so you don't have to move any of the material, or? The other one is, why all of a sudden you guys have increases on your rates? It's not anybody's fault along the Mackenzie River that you guys couldn't move stuff or haul anything. This is a government operation, and good enough we're getting charged taxes for everything, and then now we have to pay an increase for you guys' operation. I don't think that's fair. The other one is because of the Sahtu where we're located along the Mackenzie River, is it possible that you guys could relocate your office down towards the Delta region? I see on social media again that 2 or 3 barges stuck on the Mackenzie River last year in August. 2 Coast Guards trying to pull out one another. Cooper barging stuck on a sandbar, same as MTS. I just think it's be more wiser to go upstream rather than downstream with a load, right? Your boat's not fast enough to go downstream. I guess probably that's the one of the questions I had is maybe you guys could start earlier rather than beginning of June, maybe right after the ice moves. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Absolutely agree. It is about getting out early. We actually are getting out earlier than last year. The idea is to be able to move as soon as we can. Everyone's waiting, watching. As soon as we can go, we are going to go. We're going to follow the Coast Guard out. So agree with you. Fortunately, the team, I think when we add all the time together, they've got, you know, I think we counted 120 years of experience. And trust me, they are keenly wanting to get everything out as soon as possible. We started running into trouble kind of mid-August last year. The idea is to get things wrapped up well in advance of that. So the notice that we put out was getting cargo dropped off by mid-June so that we could get things moving as soon as possible. So agree with the chief and noted. As soon as we can get out, we are, that is the plan. We are trying to, for sure. As far as the rates, we kept the fuel surcharge rate is the same. Those didn't go up. The 4.5% is cost of living. The additional costs last year for the operation, whether it was shipping cargo up the Dempster or bringing fuel over the top, we haven't passed that on. The government actually did absorb those costs. Noted about the commentary about wanting to see more support in the region. So I've made notes here, and it's, you know, we work with a very, very small team with limited resources, but you have our commitment. We are doing our best, and we'll do our best, and we have learned every year to do things a bit better. So, thank you.
The reason I bring all this up is, last year I think we had one barge. One barge. I don't know about Toledo or
Mhm.
1, 2.
Mhm.
It was sad to see when I go visit Toledo for a meeting,
Mhm.
go to their store that there was nothing there in their stores. But you guys still want to increase the rates because, doesn't that look kind of, I don't know what to say about that. Thank you.
And I guess I would just say, we were able to get a little over 2 million liters into Toledo and about 130 tons of dry cargo. But it is noted that, we all wanted that last trip into the Sahtu to happen. We wanted to be able to say that we had a completely successful season. And that is our goal for this summer. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for MTS? If not, we can move along, and thanks Tracy for coming in and explaining the situation. Let's hope we have a good summer,
Thank you.
lots of water, and thank you, and we'll invite the RCMP to come forward.
Great, thank you. And I'll pass along your comments to the regional folks
Thank you
about
very
the
much.
highway. Thank you.